I'm doing fantastic. How are both of you?
It's all right. It's all right. I saw the
Good.
question in the queue. I want to hear you talk about that for a moment.
Oh, I'm moving a bunch of stuff out of the house, and I found all of my homeschool worksheets going through evolutionary science, and it's pretty frustrating.
Mm. Yeah, I was fortunate enough that while almost nobody tried to teach me evolution in middle school or high school, they did when I was in second grade, and that helped a lot. There was somebody who knew what the fuck in second grade. And I don't know what would happen if I had been deliberately misled by teachers.
Somebody in the second grade let you know that wasn't correct.
Somebody in my teacher in the second grade, I had a couple of good ones. And one of them gave me a book on dinosaurs, and it included a cladogram or a dendrogram, if you will, and it showed how everything was connected. And of course, goats and sheep are more closely related to each other than either one is to cows, but goats and sheep and cows are more closely related to each other than any of them are to horses and rhinos and tapirs. Yeah, I got to see the things that made sense. So phylogeny has kind of, from that moment, from second grade, has always been an interest of mine.
I would have liked to have gotten into it at second grade. It took until eighth.
Yeah. So what happened with you?
Started hearing evolution described in ways other than how the creationist textbooks described it. And I'm like, I have two different things here. What's going on? And
Yeah.
just asking, like, hey, did we still have that creation textbook? I'm curious what that says. My parents would get mad at me for it, like, oh, what, evolution? So I was that piqued my interest pretty immediately.
At least they didn't say evolution.
Right, evolution.
Or like the first caller today, saying that there's no such thing as evolution because he doesn't accept what the definition of evolution is.
Well,
yeah.
So John, you were still in grade school when this was happening?
Right.
Awesome. I was in my 40s.
Not awesome.
I was in my 40s.
Right. I guess in that relative to that, yes, absolutely.
Right. So I up until I was, when I was 39, I thought dinosaurs were on the ark. I was walking around as an adult human with that belief in my head, right? So I'm with you on the anger and the embarrassment, and now I literally publicly put my face out and let people know as a cautionary tale, don't be me. So I'm excited for you and proud of you and envious. So I mean, it sucks every year lost to it. Absolutely sucks, and I very much empathize. But
yeah, I was lucky.
Aaron.
I was 14 years old. I was in middle school, and everybody I knew in the world was a creationist, so far as I knew, except for my second grade teacher. Everybody I ever met, all creationists. I was the only person who understood what evolution was, much less accepted it. But I also believed that there was a worldwide flood because everybody lies about all the evidence of the flood. So here I am, 14, I'm in middle school, and I mentioned something about the Great Flood, and my atheist teacher reveals himself by laughing at me. There was no damn flood. That's not even possible. And to be rebuked with such disdain as that prompted me to think about something I'd never thought about before. And I realized in an instant he was right. How the fuck do you flood a globe?
Exactly. I don't know. It's just hard. This is all in my own eighth grade writing. It's all in my, like the answers I gave. Oh, why is this wrong? How how is the hyena and a whale related? It's like, oh, obviously they're not because blah blah blah. And it's just frustrating to see it in my own writing. And my parents have been big on, oh, we didn't indoctrinate you or anything. Well, okay. What is a different word for being exclusively taught one thing, not being allowed to challenge it for what, 16 years or way longer? How can that not be that? And what is indoctrination?
So one of the things that helps me, so I was in a similar boat. One of the things that I think about was like, did they knowingly, did they have the evidence for evolution and withhold it from you? Or like, did they honestly believe it? And because if so, they were in their own way a victim then too, right?
I feel for him, but then, around 8th grade, I tried talking about it a lot. Divergence, tons of arguments, and I could explain anything possible. Then it just hasn't gone well since then.
Are you still financially dependent on your parents?
No.
Okay. My advice always shifts based on whether you're still financially dependent, because obviously that makes it a big deal. So what are you struggling?
Yeah.
Are you wanting basically commiseration? Because I'm happy to commiserate with you on how much this sucks, at length. But were you looking for something beyond commiseration today that we could help you with?
Is there anything like productive I could think about this situation or do? Like, it's probably better to just let it go and accept it. But
so first thing you should do, I would say, is like educate yourself, because that really helped me. Is to like, okay, so then I had to take literal time off of the rest of my life, and like now I need to go and learn science from scratch, right? So I trust you've been doing a lot of that work, but I'm just in case you haven't, certainly that is helpful. And then also working on epistemology, like it sounds like you probably have now become a skeptical person about lots of things. Are you calling mainly like when you say the situation, do you mean the situation with people who still believe in creationism, or is it a different situation?
Into other family members, nephews have also been homeschooled and taught this exact same stuff. So it's like they're in the same position that I am. It's obviously not my place, and I've never done anything related to that. I guess it is just commiserating, because it's like,
yeah, but that's great. But so one of the things I learned later that I was doing, that I now know, and I can't speak openly of because I'm still protecting identities of people, but there were people in my family younger than me who, because I became an example of someone who went and learned on my own, and it became public in the family that I was obviously often learning on my own, it allowed those people younger some freedom. I was taking some of the slings and arrows to give them the freedom to research on their own as well, without me even indoctrinating them, right? It was just being that person who, it was probably a challenge for you, just like Aaron said. Everyone I knew was a creationist. And it's possible that you can be the one person in these guys, in your nephews and nieces' lives, you're the one person now that in their life who doesn't believe in creationism. And so just like Aaron was thankful for his teacher and you're thankful for yours, I wouldn't recommend you engineer it, but you are now in that position to be that for your nieces and nephews as well. Just your existence puts some light in their world that wouldn't otherwise be there.
Right. That's the path that I've taken for the last few years.
Right. And so I would not recommend that you slip them evolution books, or that you necessarily do anything. But if you want to, one way of being covert about it is when you're hanging out, because you do want to probably maintain the relationship, otherwise you can't do anything. Oftentimes you can just, for when you watch a commercial on TV, you can ask them, hey, I wonder if that claim is true. How do you think that you would go about finding out whether the thing that the commercial just told me was true? And sort of starting to teach some of those skills, right? Of how do we question things, and where would we go for a source, and how do we figure out reliable sources that theoretically their parents can't object to, right? Because you're questioning whether scrub bubbles really work on the tub. So, it's not as threatening. Those are the kind of things that I ended up trying to do with my own kids, right? That was the avenue that was available to me. And, it's their own journeys. They're on their own points in their own journeys, but these are things that help. So there's stuff you can do.
My kids both asked me at different, at about the same time in each of their lives. My daughter says, Dad, what's the true religion? now I said the same thing at the same age to my mom. What's the true religion? And she says, well, ours is, of course. And I remember thinking, well, of course she would say that. How could she say something? How could she say anything else? So when it came my daughter's turn to ask me, she says, which is the true religion? And I said, none of them. They're all wrong, including me. And it was interesting because I still believed in supernatural things at that time. So at the time I was right when I said I was wrong. And then my son, who had been indoctrinated by his babysitter while I'm at work, I come pick up my boy, and he scans down the hallway. He's 5 years old. He scans down the hallway. He wants to make sure that nobody is in earshot when he asked me this. He says, Dad, how does God just make stuff? And I knew the answer he needed was going to be different than the answer my daughter needed. And so I leaned in and whispered, he didn't. And I could see a wave of relief wash over as the universe made sense again. And I could relate to that because the universe never made sense until I gave up trying to shoehorn a God into it.
Right, to go into nature and see God that way. But when I started doing that, I was like, it seemed to me that unless that idea was already existed and given to them, that if you just existed in nature, you wouldn't get that idea that comes from. But that was just a
yeah. Religion has to be taught to you. It's not going to be. To some people, have made the comparison as if our civilizations were to collapse and all of our literature, every type of writing had just all disappeared, and we had to come back and invent language again, and there's no books from the old time, so we have to go figure things out all over again. Science will come back the way it was, one way or another, but the old religions are gone. There will be new religions, completely different ones, but science still going to be the same.
Yeah, that one always
stuck
with me a lot. Well, that's about it. I really appreciate everything.
Yep, my pleasure. All right, we'll go ahead and let you go. We'll take. We got a couple more in the queue right now. We've even got a theist ready. So we'll talk to you soon, John. Thank you.
Thank you.